Man, this is Deion Dawkins, man, and you're listening to The Scoop on owlscoop.com. You already know.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to The Scoop, owlscoop.com's podcast, Season 7, Episode 45. I'm John DeCarlo, joined by Kyle Gauss and Javon Edmonds. Later on, when we talk to Temple assistant basketball coach Jimmy Fenerty, you will hear the glorious voice of Sam Cohn. But for now, here in the intro, it's just Javon and Kyle and I talking. What's going on, guys?
Not much.
Sam is with us in our hearts. He is not with us for this segment.
He's still alive.
Well, yeah. People
Sam
can
Cohn
be
is still alive.
People can be in your hearts without having been deceased.
Yes.
I carry you, John. I carry you in my heart.
I'm the only famous. I'm sure there's.
Oh, there's a huge one.
45.
Yeah.
Why am I thinking of Vaughn Hebron from the Eagles?
That's not it. That's not the huge one. Javon, what do you think of when you think of 45?
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan coming back. He couldn't wear 23.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he could. He just didn't want to.
I thought it was because it was just like it was retired by the Bulls at that point. They hadn't unretired it.
No, he wanted to leave that 23 stuff in the past until Nick Anderson, said something to him in the playoffs, and 23 came back out and looked like 23.
So Michael Jordan wanted to make the story a little bit bigger. That's crazy. Bob Gibson, 45.
Yes.
Bob Gibson and Michael Jordan were the big ones to me.
We have ahead for you in the podcast here. Again, you'll hear part of our interview with Jimmy Fenerty. You gave us a great scan of the roster, as he always does, took some mailbag questions. You will hear part of that on this episode of The Scoop. Subscribers to owlscoop.com will be able to hear the full interview in its entirety. So we have that coming up. And of course, we're recording this on a Wednesday. If you're listening to this later tonight or Thursday morning, Temple is going to be hosting its football media day. The American Athletic Conference will also be hosting its media day. And then preseason camp starts next week. So we'll have plenty of football to talk to you about as well. Something we're going to be doing, we've kind of teased to it on the last episode. We're going to be doing an all-time Temple basketball fantasy draft. Javon, it's with good reason you're not going to be able to do the draft for us. You're celebrating your mother's birthday, correct?
Yes.
So then let me ask you this again. Mark Macon, consensus number one pick. You're not going to take part in the draft unless you kind of hop in and you're like a shadow drafter for somebody. Let's say you get the number 2 pick, Macon's off the board. Who would you take?
Jackson. I think I'd take Mark Jackson.
This is a number. Oh, man.
I like it.
Number 2 would be number 2. That's maybe a little high, but Mark Jackson has to be a first round pick.
That's why I like. That's why I'm missing Javon could be a wild card here, like Jackson. And I love Mark Jackson. Love him as a player. Love him as a person. If you're sitting there at 3 and your mind is blown, like, okay, Mark Jackson went number 2. There are a lot of guys out there.
This is when somebody drafts Tom Brady second overall. This is when someone takes a quarterback like second overall. And you're like, holy crap, my entire board's.
Well, let's think about the consensus first rounders then. So
I'm not revealing anything.
I'm just saying.
I'm still in the ship, man. I got to go out there tomorrow and perform. Okay.
You're right. You're okay. I'll let you keep your board.
I will say, apparently we got rid of a wild card, Javon, and we invited the Fox into the hen house with who we replaced him with.
Yes. Varun Kumar.
Varun is going to eat our lunch. Like, he's going to destroy us.
Yes. Varun is, some of you who've subscribed to the site for a long time, Varun. He is, I don't know how old he is now, but he's going on, let's say 75 years old. He's an old soul, did not go to Temple, loves Temple, went to Pitt. We've told the story before. I think he showed up at a random Temple LaSalle game, and on Wednesday night, we're at the Palestra, we're walking down to the media area. He taps us on the shoulder, gives us a hug. Kyle looks him square in the eyes, says, "What are you doing here? He
was a student at Pitt at the time.
Why are you here?" And he said something like, "I couldn't miss it, man.
Like, had to be here."
A moderately attended Big 5 game in the middle of the week, but he loves his Temple history, loves his Temple basketball. But Javon, you'll have the Zoom link. I mean, if you want to Zoom bomb us, please do.
I might pop in if possible.
I'm going to throw another 45 out there that I got from Googling. Back up big on like the second or third best NBA team of all time, the 82-83 Sixers.
Mark Ivoroni? No,
Clement Johnson.
Who?
Clement Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on, wait. What was your rank for those Sixers?
Like third or fourth best team of all time. Yeah. They almost went 4-4-4-4. Or did they go 4-4-4-4? Like they dominated the playoffs. They beat the crap out of the Lakers in that series.
Yeah, Moses was too much to handle.
Yeah, like they're like I'm not going to make the argument like, oh, they're better than like the heyday like Bulls or like maybe even like more recent Warriors, but like they're like a top.
They're guaranteed top 10.
They're like
a
top 4 or 5 NBA team.
Yeah.
Feel Javon saying, crafting a take in his head.
No. I actually like that. I actually like that because I don't think Moses Malone and that team get enough credit at all.
100%. They won 65 games, but they're still like overshadowed. Like they were like a dominant team with
like they whooped the prime Lakers because Kareem had nothing for Moses. That's yeah.
Moses averaged 26 and 18 in that NBA Finals. 18 rebounds a game. Like Kareem still did his thing, got 23 points a game, but like not dominant.
I've only started that their starting five was Mo Cheeks, obviously Julius Erving, Moses. Was it Ivoroni and Andrew Toney? Is that the starting
Andrew Toney? It was Moses Malone, Andrew Toney, Dr. J, Mo Cheeks, and Bobby Jones, right?
Bobby Jones. Yeah. There you go. A little NBA.
Bobby Jones in the Hall of Fame too. So is it 4 Hall of Famers on that team? I think so.
Yeah. So we got a draft.
Very good Tony.
Draft coming up. And then we'll have, we're hoping to talk to down the line some of the players that are taken in this draft, just to have some fun with this. I think what we're going to do, guys, right, is like the teams will be selected, and then we'll kind of, put this out there, maybe do a poll or something like that, have people pick, and that's how teams will advance in the bracket. So we're looking forward to having some fun with that, in addition to the football coverage that we have lined up for you, again, with preseason camp starting next week. But let us start you off here with our interview and our conversation with Jimmy Fenerty, Temple's assistant coach. Again, you'll hear this if you are an owlscoop.com subscriber. You can hear this in its entirety. You're going to hear part of that interview here where he gives us a little bit of a scan of the roster and, again, some terrific insight into the program and the high hopes that they have heading into the season and heading into year 4. I think everybody can agree this is it's time to get to the NCAA tournament type of year, and Jimmy certainly feels that way. So we will play this interview, for you now. Joining us once again on the scoop, as he's done several times before, he's always very generous with his time, is Temple assistant basketball coach Jimmy Fenerty, here to talk to us about the current team, anything in general. Who knows what will come up? Maybe his vast palate, his complicated appetite. Who knows?
What did Jimmy say his Chipotle order was, or something? Or we talked about an order somewhere last time he was on the pod.
It was Chipotle. It definitely was Chipotle.
Was it It was something like just chicken, rice, and cheese, right, Jimmy?
Only just a little bit of cheese, though. Just a little bit, not too much. You can't.
A little bit.
Don't overdo it.
You don't tell him a little bit, you're getting the whole handful of cheese there. I'm not really ready for all that.
Can you tell us when you say just a little bit of cheese, what the look is on the face of the person working there? Like, can you define a little bit?
I'll tell you what, it's
like
not as crazy as it is when I say, yeah, you can wrap it up after that. Because then they're looking at me like, really? This is all you want? I'm like, yeah, okay.
I think you should know how ridiculous it is that you actually got a reaction from a Chipotle employee. like it's a line item thing, and you stood out enough for them to be like, really?
That's funny.
Hey, we're already off and running with some food talk. But Jimmy, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate it. Let's talk, I guess, about like your newest addition. We'll start off. I mean, there's a lot to get into, but Shane Dezonie, the Vanderbilt transfer. I think fans were waiting to see how it was going to play out. Very good high school player, highly recruited guy, and he's had quite a journey. He committed to Arizona, got out of his LOI once Sean Miller was fired. Ends up at Vanderbilt. You guys got a little bit of a glimpse at him when you beat him down there this past season, and then he verbally commits to St. Joe's. That didn't work out, and now he's with you guys. Can you just give fans a glimpse of how that all came together, why you guys liked him and pursued him in the portal, and how he's looked so far?
Yeah, no, it's great to have Shane. Obviously, I think it's funny because we were his first offer, and that was really the first young guy that we offered when we got here as a staff. So seeing it come full circle has been great. Shane he's terrific. He's got a good way about him. He's a great teammate. He's improving shooting the ball. That's been the thing that I've been most excited about. We knew he could shoot, but we didn't know he could shoot this well. but he also got a great feel, makes other guys better, gives us another ball handler that we sort of needed. It was sort of a great fit for what we needed at that time. We had already sort of filled the holes with the bigs. We'd gotten Taj, we'd gotten Deuce. So then we needed another ball handler, and Shane just popped up at the right time, and it worked out. We're really excited about him. He's got a really bright future, and I think he's a guy who is going to really help us here for the next couple of years.
Do you, I know there's a lot of time between now and the season. It may not seem like it to you guys when you're on a tight calendar, but do you expect him to play this year?
We do. Yeah, we do. We expect him to play. That was sort of the plan from the start. He's ready to go and cleared, and we're ready to hit the ground running with him.
You mentioned Taj. The last few months it felt like a blur. I can't remember last time we had you on, but can you tell us a little about Taj Thweatt and how he's looked so far this summer through workouts?
Yeah, Taj has a wealth of energy, to put it simply. He's a guy, sometimes I told him, like, hey, there's a reason there's speed limits here. You can't go 100 miles per hour all the time. But that's a good thing and a bad thing at times. So for him, it's about bringing great energy, bringing the physicality, the toughness, running the floor that he does. He's a junkyard dog, and he's everywhere in practice, and for him, he's so excited because this is his first chance to really kind of get out there and play. Obviously, he couldn't really play a whole lot last year. It was a weird situation transferring to Coastal Carolina and West Virginia. His freshman year was sort of a COVID year. It wasn't a legitimate year. So this will be his first real full year in a college basketball program, and we're excited to work with him. So we're looking forward to that.
What about with Taj? Do you think is that a to be determined type of thing, whether he can play or is going to play, or do you guys know how that's going to play out yet?
To be determined as of right now. I think there's some NCAA things that you got to look through with waivers and the new transfer rules and all of that. And I think it's just, for us right now, it's just wait and see sort of thing, and see what breaks our way, see what doesn't break our way, and see where we can be this time and in about 3-4 months here.
One last one here about Taj before I turn things over to Kyle for the next question. Obviously, you guys recruited both of them when they were in high school, and he's tight with Jaleel, who really took a huge step for you guys last year. I know it's only been like a little bit of time, but they're obviously friends. When you look at how they've interacted so far, how good has it been for him to I'm assuming, how good has it been for him to be back home and be around somebody like Jaleel, who he was so close with in high school, and now they get to play together like fans were hoping for initially?
Absolutely. Yeah, he fits. I think that with all of our guys that we brought in, and you worry about that, right? So you got to add 5 new guys into the program, and you're trying to figure out how everyone's going to match. And these guys, but you don't really know them until you get them here. And Taj is a guy we knew a little bit more about, but he fits. He fits right in with the guys, and everybody likes each other. And now it's early, but everybody has been enjoying each other, enjoying having Taj around. I think he may win the funniest guy on the team contest here if we ever had one. So he fits right in.
I mean, looking at all of those playmakers on the team, it makes me think of you get a full season of Emmanuel Pomo now, who back in high school, he got to play with Cam Thomas, who's obviously an NBA level scorer. How excited are you about a full season of Pomo, knowing he's been around this style of play before?
Yeah, absolutely. Ema's got to be a guy to do a lot of the dirty work. Like, he's got to be physical. He's a very, very good positional defender, and he does a great job of sealing. So for him, when he rolls, he's not a guy who's scoring a ton, but when he rolls, if he can seal his defender and open up driving lanes for those guys, that's huge. That's huge, and that's a big piece for him. So we're pretty excited about him as well. And
what have you seen from him on the low block? I thought last year he looked like the best low post scorer on the team to me. What have you seen from him in that facet of the game?
Yeah, he's getting there. He's spent a lot of time working on it. He's getting there. He can score it in there. I think probably if we were to define it, like he's a decent passer down there too. But he can score it a little bit. He's getting better. He's been working a ton. The fun part is with these 3 centers we got, having them all play one-on-one every day is fun, and it helps those guys to get better. And Ema's a guy, he's won a couple of days, and that's been cool to see, his growth and his development, his self-confidence as well.
Jimmy, I want to ask you about this as well. One of the fun things we're going to try to do, we're doing this tomorrow night. We're going to have a Owl Scoop all-time Temple basketball fantasy draft type of thing. 13 players, It should be fun. People are coming up with draft boards allegedly. I want to ask you, put you on the spot here, and ask you for your all-time Temple starting five, and maybe if you've got like a guy that instantly jumps out to you as a guy that comes off the bench.
Yeah, so you're putting me in some hot water here because I work with five of them. So if I don't say Chris, Aaron, Macon, Brooks, and Ivy, then I've done a bad job, and I'm probably not going to have a job for very long.
It's a safe space. Just say what you want.
Yeah. I was a big Chris Clark fan growing up. I'm gonna be honest with you. I used to go down. I went down the year they won 3 A-10 tournaments in a row. I was at every single one of them in AC with my dad. So I loved watching those teams, and I was a big Chris Clark fan. But Brooks, McKee, Macon, and Ivy would have to round out my starting five.
Who's first off the bench?
Mark Jackson comes around quite a bit, so I'm going to throw Mark on there. And Marty Collins was in today, so I got to say him. But if I don't say Shiz Alston, I'm going to hear that for the rest of my life. So I actually grew up working out Shiz when he was in high school there. So
Jimmy, want to ask you about that now that you bring up Shiz. He had mentioned that he spent almost the entirety of last summer around the team. I think it was last summer around the team. And it looks like he's around the facility a ton this summer as a mentor to the guys, working out himself, training with the guys. How important has he been to the program just over the last couple of years since he's graduated?
Really, I would say the beauty of Temple, the beauty of Philadelphia, but really the beauty of Temple is when these guys come back. So like Scooty Randall is in here almost every day. You already have Brooks, Macon, Ivy, and Chris and Aaron, but Scooty Randall's in here all the time. Shiz comes back. He's in here almost every day. Marty Collins is in here today talking to our guys. Deontay Christmas is in a lot. So it's great because they hear the message from us, but at the end of the day, we're their coaches, right? So if they hear it from Deontay Christmas or Scooty Randall or whoever it is that comes back or Shiz, like that's massive for us because they've been in their shoes. They've been through it. They know what it's like, and they can talk to them like peers as opposed to coach player. And that's been huge. And Shiz has done a great job. He's already latched on to KB and Dame, and he did a good job with Jeremiah when he was here, and just trying to help those guys through a lot of this and talk to them. And they'll get out there and they'll play pickup with them. And that part's been a lot of fun because they just it carries on the culture from throughout the years, but it also gives them a different perspective because those guys are living what they want to do, and that's been fun.
Jimmy, one last draft question for you. Let's say you were going to take part in our draft and you had the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Who are you taking?
To quote Allen Iverson, Aaron McKee, Aaron McKee, Aaron McKee, Aaron McKee. So that's I'm not giving you anything other than Coach Speak, but I'm going with Aaron McKee. So he signs my checks. So
I'm making a commissioner ruling here. Jimmy participated in practice that one season. He is eligible for the draft. You can draft Jimmy Fenerty in the all-time draft.
There we go.
I did. I'm surprised you know that.
Yeah, I think you told me that. Like, I think I knew it at the time. It was just they were so short-staffed that Dunphy was like, "Look, somebody's got to get out there."
Yeah, it was my first year here as a grad assistant. We were 9-22, and Dan Dingle. We had 10 scholarship guys because you had Jesse Morgan, Devin Coleman, and Jalen Bond sitting out. And Dan Dingle tore his meniscus, and Mark Williams had rolled his ankle, and we were at UCF in the locker room, and Dunph turns to me and he goes, "How many years of eligibility do you have left?" Thank God it was 0 because that would have been awful for everybody involved. So
what do you think?
Yeah.
I can imagine that conversation. Jimmy, let me ask you a question here. You can do that.
Yeah, and then this is primetime Dunph in the locker room, so you can imagine there were a couple other words that were used in that moment, and I'm like, I remember calling my dad like, "Dad, this is not good."
Would have been great if you'd
awesome.
gotten in, hit a couple shots, and Dunph, like he's a good human being. He's a good human being. He works his butt off every day. So what you're saying is we will now, Kyle, we'll have to make it. Is there, when we ordered our draft packet, is there a Jimmy Fenerty sticker, or do we have to write him in now?
Yeah, absolutely not. Please do not do that for me or any disrespect to the Temple University men's basketball players of the future, of the past that earned that way more than I did. So
I guess real quick, since you brought him up, I mean, just kind of what are your thoughts on Dunph up at LaSalle now, and that you guys are going to get a chance to play him early on?
Yeah, happy for him, rooting for him, excited for him. I mean, anytime you get a chance to be at your alma mater to try to write that and get that ship going in the right direction. Not that it wasn't, but I think when you bring in Dunph, get a chance to see what he can do, and rooting for Mark Huber over there as well. And those guys are good guys, and those are those games where you don't really want to win, but you have to win, because you like those guys so much, and you're so incredibly thankful for them and what they've done for you. So pumped for Dunph, and it's cool seeing him on the road, and you get to have some fun conversations as well. So.
We had a few mailbag questions for you here. One is from these are screen names from our Owl Scoop message boards. This is from Berkshire Owl. And he's saying, how is he feeling about the new players? Are they fitting in with the culture? So, I mean, it sounds like the answer to that is a positive one, but I'll kind of maybe adapt this question here. This is kind of the new norm where the roster is going to be turning over a lot with the portal. And how is it just second nature now to kind of say, this is what we deal with in terms of that being a together team, like you said, or is that kind of where you want it to be right now?
It is. I think we do a good job, and this is really stems from Aaron, of recruiting Temple guys that fit us. We're not trying to bend who we are for anyone. So the guys we bring in sort of have an idea of who we are. But yeah, this is the new normal. I think if you would talk to me in April, I would probably have bags under my eyes and be exhausted just from everything that you got to do at that time, and with as many scholarships you had, and there's a lot of uncertainty, and there's a lot of just trying to figure things out. So it is the new normal. People complain about it. It is what it is. I think we benefited from the portal, to be completely honest with you. I think we went out there and we got 4 transfers, so 4 really good pieces, and a high school guy who I think is really going to help us. So I think the guys who came in are better than the guys who went out, not to take anything away from the guys who went out, and we're thankful for what they were able to do here. But when you graduate 4 guys, I think you kind of knew, all right, there's a chance that most of these guys are going to leave. And then obviously you lose Jay Will and Quincy, and they were a little bit, one of them was unexpected. One of them we kind of thought was coming. So it is the new normal, and that's what you sort of have to expect. I think you'll see teams taking a high school guy or 2 that they wouldn't normally take because of that, because they're thinking, all right, let's get a guy in the stable. We have a guy, we know he's going to be pretty good, or we know he's a good program guy. We know about him, so that way we don't have to scramble in April and June. So that's a big piece to it too.
Kind of segues us into this next question. The screen name is B Devon4. Has the transfer portal made the recruiting of high school players any easier or less competitive, with so many schools now holding scholarships for the portal, and with arguably the deepest Temple team in some time? Any guess as to how deep the rotation will likely go?
So the first question is it easier to recruit high school guys? Yes and no. The guys that we need, we need high major guys. You know what I mean? We think we're a high major. If you look at our league, we're a high major league. So you need high major guys. So the high major guys are still getting recruited. It's that next tier guys that aren't getting as many offers as they normally would, because you go all in on 2 or 3 guys that you really like. And if you don't get them, hey, you know what? You're going to wind up going to the portal anyway. So we're not going to have to take a high school guy like we would in the past. But that being said, I think there are some high school guys. I don't think we get Deuce in a normal year. I think Deuce probably winds up taking something and winds up going to a pretty good spot, and winds up being a guy who probably would have transferred up if everything kind of worked out the way we think it's going to work out with him. I think that right now, what you're seeing with some high school guys, I think you're going to see guys committing a little earlier. I think you're going to see some guys who maybe aren't necessarily at the level that they're being recruited at, some of them, because guys are going to take guys. All right, he's a kid, he's close by, he's got a chance to be really good. Let's take him because we think he's going to be good and he's going to develop. And I think you'll see more guys are redshirt guys too, because they're going to say, hey, look, nobody in our league plays freshmen, so let's redshirt you first. And we've had success with that. You look at Ja, you look at Dame, both guys who have redshirted wind up being all rookie guys. So I think that's something you think about at the same time. But I'm actually pretty excited about our 23 class and just a couple of guys that we're recruiting. So that's exciting as well.
This last mailbag question here, the screen name is Esther Boyer, coming in hot with this direct question. How long until we can expect the NCAA tournament berth? No canned answers.
No canned answers. Absolutely. This year, the goal for us is to go this year. And I think we have the team to get there. I think we've scheduled that way. I think if you look at our conference, we don't want to be what SMU was last year. And we got to go. And so we're going to schedule to that level. We told this when we were recruiting guys, when we did the Zoom meeting with Taj and Shane and Core and Millie. It's, hey, like, this is go time. Like, we're built. And now, not to put any added pressure on us, but for us, we're thinking NCAA tournament. And that's got to be this year. And that's our plan.
Jimmy, thanks for your time, man. We appreciate it. And we'll certainly talk to you again soon.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
A big thank you once again to Jimmy Fenerty. Again, a reminder that was a part of our conversation with Jimmy. You can get the whole thing on the site that is available to owlscoop.com subscribers. But I mean, it sounds like the easy, low-hanging fruit thing to say, guys. But as I said before we queued up the interview for you here, they know that they feel they have the pieces to win and go to the NCAA tournament, and anything less than that isn't going to be enough, right?
Yeah, I'm going to break the Jimmy Fenerty interview into 10 parts. We're going to call it the first dance, because I think they're really focused on this is a make or break regardless. Like, I think if you had rewound the clock 3 years ago, you would have said that last year was probably when they had to make the tournament. But, and a global pandemic happens. They have a bunch of people transfer out. They have their back-to-back starting point guards leave the program for different reasons. So I would say that, like, this year is, if they want this to be a long-term success where, hey, Temple keeps building upon itself, they need to make the tournament this year. There's no excuses.
And Jimmy said it. He thinks he's got the roster for it. I told you guys in the group chat, I heard good things about Jalil and Dezonie last week. And everything Jimmy said about Nick was on brand with the performance I heard he had. So, I mean, like you said, tournament or bust, and the non-conference schedule will help a lot. They've got to hope they draw St. John's and the Empire Classic, because that's big for the resume. St. John's hasn't had a losing record and Lord knows how long. So that's only going to help boost their stock. So tournament or bust, don't beat SMU from last year.
Yeah, I think Jimmy talked about this. Was one of the things that kind of sticks out is it's not just the fact that you're bringing back, Caleb Battle and Dame Dunn and all these, and Zach Hicks. It's adding in some of those transfers and the bigs, and even Taj Thweatt if he plays, and Shane, stuff like that. Allow players like Nick Jourdain to play in the role that they should be playing in. Like, Nick Jourdain has played out of position a lot in college basketball at Temple, and I think this is the year where they finally say, look, if everybody's healthy and we're rolling in there with our full 12 scholarships, because they do have one open, that they have the depth to finally, like, run this team the way they want to run it.
All right. So, yeah, big thank you to Jimmy. Hope you guys enjoy that interview, and to our subscribers, hope you enjoy the full conversation there. If you have not yet subscribed to owlscoop.com, that will be a great time, as things are really going to be getting ramped up here over the next several weeks, between some of the basketball coverage we're going to be giving you and, of course, the football coverage as training camp approaches next week. So that will lead us nicely into our conversation now about preseason camp and this 2022 edition of the Temple Owls under first-year head coach Stan Drayton. We'll lead things off here with a very basic mailbag question here from Berkshire Al from the message board. We asked for mailbag questions, and he just asked this general one: what are you all expecting from the football team this year? So we'll address that and then kind of get into some, position battles we're keeping an eye on. I'll touch briefly on, I had the opportunity to talk to Adam Klein and Zach Gill before the Phillies game Monday night at the Temple Takeover event. But I know it sounds simple, but I get that question a lot. I got that question a lot Monday night. Hey, fans in general, happy to see the Rod Carey era end. Stan Drayton seems like he gets it. What do you think this team's going to look like this year? What are you all expecting from the football team this year, as Berkshire Al said? So Kyle, I'll throw that over to you first. And Javon, again, we might be answering this question differently at the end of August. I don't know how much it'll change, but what are you expecting from the team this year?
Progress, hopefully. I mean, I'm not naive enough to think that this team's all of a sudden 9-3 and is contending for a conference championship. I think you're just looking for signs of progress. And a lot of that's obviously in the box score and on the scoreboard of, hey, are they not losing by 45 points to these games? Are they competitive? I actually, just because I guess I'm a sadist or a masochist, I looked up the Temple Boston College box score today because, hey, why not? Let's relive that game where they couldn't move the ball the entire time. And a very winnable game without Phil Jerkovich, you just looked like a Pee Wee football team. I don't expect games like that. I do think that Stan Drayton and his staff have done a good job of highlighting and bringing in players at positions of need, but I'm expecting progress. I mean, I would think that if I'm a betting man that they're winning 4 or 5, maybe 6 games, but that's TBD.
6 wins will be great season. 5 wins will be good. 4 and 8, and it's like as long as it's a good 4 and 8, that's my most reasonable expectation. But I'm in that same range. That 4 and 8 has to be like, okay, those 8 losses, they fought hard, they lost to who they were supposed to lose to. 5, they stole a game. 6 is Stan Drayton is going to be on the path to being the next pretty good Temple coach. Yeah,
if they win 6 games this year, then Stan Drayton's probably not here in 4 years. Like that just seems like, okay, then they're on the right path. They make that big step. They go from there. I'll say I think their first game is the perfect barometer for determining how this season's going to be, because Duke's not a good team. They're not a good program. They're in the first year of a new regime too. I'm not saying you have to go down there and beat Duke, but if you go down there and lose 45-0 against a 2-win Duke team that had to replace its entire coach staff, then that's probably not a great sign of where you are in your progress. But if you go down there and you're competitive and it goes into the fourth quarter and you lose there, or if you win that game, then that's probably a sign that they're on the right path.
Yeah, I think you guys make some good points there. Javon, to your point, I think that's how I would view it too. If they're a 4 and 8 team, but they look like they're making tangible signs of progress at 4 and 8, that's about, I think, the most realistic approach that you can take. And Kyle, to your point, Duke is a really good kind of barometer, an interesting barometer for them as an opener with Elko down there. Interesting backstory there, because he got offered the job and turned it down and turned it into I think what we know was a pretty decent raise at A&M to stay there. Right. So it'll be interesting, really interesting opener. I think everybody is sort of kind of in the same boat there in terms of what to expect from the football team this year. It's, if they finish 6-6 and go to a bowl game, but they're cutting a bunch of corners and you'd think, wow, they won that game, but we're not sure how they did it. I think how they look and how they win, how they play is just as important, if not more important. Before we get to a couple of other mailbag questions here, we've touched on this a little bit before, and we've said that there really aren't too many position battles to look at that aren't up for grabs, maybe with the exception of you like how you look at corner, right? With Cam Ruiz, with Keyshawn Paul,
and even the next level down with Jalen McMurray and whether a guy like Elijah Clark. I think that position group's pretty solid.
Yeah. And, and we'll talk a little bit about Adam Klein in a second. He told me that he looks like he's pretty settled in it at right tackle, although he's played some other positions on the line. Obviously, the quarterback position is going to be an interesting one. And most coaches, unless they have a really solidified guy there, or say that the competition is always going to be king at quarterback. But, Stan Drayton is obviously going to be looking for someone to emerge there between DeJuan Mathis and Quincy Patterson, the North Dakota State via Virginia Tech transfer. I don't know if it'll be a situation. Again, this is something that will need to be written and decided. Where is it a DeJuan Mathis at starter with some packages for Quincy Patterson? We'll have to see how that goes. But I don't know. Are there any other position battles where you feel like it's going to be anticlimactic other than corner?
You know what? For as much turmoil as to be quite frank, how bad they were last year in this group, I kind of feel like I know how the offensive line is going to play out. Mm-hmm. I kind of feel okay, Isaac Moore and Adam Klein and Wisdom Corshi is going to be in there. Richard Rodriguez is going to be in there. Is it Bryce Tolman at center, or is it Wisdom Corshi at center? Is Pisa doing I feel like for the most part, I think that's going to end up being the 5 guys that started against Duke were 5 guys that you would expect. Mm-hmm. Whether that's Jimto Obadegu also in there, I think there's competition there, but I feel like with that group and that position, you would tend to lean towards let's go with guys that have done it in the past at first.
Javon, what do you think? You think that's would you agree with Kyle there, and that's a line that's pretty much, I don't want to say short up, because they still do have some.
Oh, I don't think it's short up whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's just like Kyle said, the first 5 guys we see out there together are going to be the most sensible 5 at the moment. Yeah. I think I've said it before, safety looks pretty shored up to me. Outside of corner, like the secondary is filled. I think we have a good outlook of what linebacker is going to look like. I think quarterback and receiver and how the running back snaps get distributed are really the biggest question marks.
I will say, I mean, exactly what Javon just said of like linebackers, safeties, and corners, like feel like they're like, you kind of know. That actually kind of gives me pause because like I feel pretty good about those groups, to be honest. Like I feel like there's like legitimate playmakers at linebacker. I feel like there's a lot of people that played a lot of snaps at safety, and we've talked about the corners. But then my mind goes, well, if you feel good about them, why'd they win 3 games last year? Mm-hmm. Like, why could people run the ball against them at will? And that's because the defensive line was so touch and go at times last year that's the past of Temple football. When they're good on both lines. Mm-hmm. I don't think that formula's changed. I think in order for the Stan Drayton era to be successful, as those 2 lines are the focal point for the next couple of years until they get to that level.
Yeah, and I think it's their way of saying, not that anybody couldn't probably pick up on this, that's their way of saying that we feel the coaching is better and they're going to get more out of both of those lines. When I talked to Zach Gill and Adam Klein on Monday night, Zach Gill had said, guys feel good about being back in the building again. And even if he's not saying that's a thinly veiled shot at Rod Carey and the previous staff, it's just the truth, So even the guys that Adam Klein is talking about, again, a reminder, if you're an Owl Scoop subscriber, you can read my interviews with Adam Klein and Zach Gill. They're up on the site now, and a lot of good insight there heading into preseason camp. And, some of those guys that I'd have mentioned, like Wisdom Quarshie, Bryce Towman, brought up Rich Rodriguez's name, James Faminu, Peace Addo, they ended up, again, this is a season where Chris Weezahan's really going to, earn his money. Not that he doesn't every season, but you're going to see how much of a market improvement will there be there, where guys are saying stuff like, wow, I'm playing with much better pad level. Well, some of it was simple adjustments. Some of it was this, some of it was that. But, I think I think that ties back into what we were talking about. If they're 4-8, but you see that they're playing smarter, that they're not heavily penalized, that they're just, like Javon said, that there's effort there. I think that's, really what you're looking for there. We'll go to a couple of the, this one mailbag question here from the screen name is TJ Clark. And it kind of allows us to close things out here again, because there will be so much more football to talk about in future episodes. Kyle, I was thinking about this earlier because you've been eager to turn the page. I mean, with camp starting next week, do we go to season 8? Is season 7 done?
Look, for those that are, reading the tabloids, the rumors are true that I'm about to disappear probably for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to just have that break prior to my departure or when I come back, whatever you want to say as far as the season, I'm okay with. I would say, putting my own ego aside, I would say it's probably more of it makes more sense logistically to do it like this is the last episode of the season.
I think this is a decision you put on your daughter. Ask her.
Yeah, well, I'll do that. I'll put out 2 things. I'll see which one she grabs first, or which eye focuses. When babies are born, like so many babies have like a lazy eye at first. So you're like, oh crap, where are you looking? I'll see which one it looks at first. Which one she looks at first.
How do you know she's not going to be speaking on day 3?
Yeah, that's a fair point. But look, if she's just like progressed quickly by day 3 and like all of a sudden she's walking, smoking reds and like talking, then like we have bigger questions. All of a sudden I'm seeing green at that point, to be honest. We're going on the road. I'm doing 400 nights and 400 visits and 450 nights. We're hitting everywhere on the seaboards. Come see the talking, smoking baby. And then 100 years later, they'll make a musical about it. Hugh Jackman will star in it. It'll be okay.
Vegas residency. Maybe Vegas is all you need there.
Yeah, I don't think you want to do the Vegas residency, though. I feel like that just leads to like people kind of like going off the chain. Like
that's too early in the career, too. Like Vegas residency is when you can't book spots anymore. Except
for like Lady Gaga did a Vegas residency, I think. And like she can still book spots. But yeah, for the most part, it's right. It's like, okay, Brittany, you're here for 2 years, 6 shows a week. Grind it out.
As long as it's a Vegas residency and not an Atlantic City residency, because if you get the Atlantic City one, that means you're really finished.
Look, Javon, I think there's something to be said about being a big fish in a small pond, though. So, like, imagine, like, would you rather be like the number 8 dude on the Vegas Strip, or just like the number 1 dude that's like taking down like the Tropicana every night in Atlantic City?
This went off the rails.
That's a great question.
Yeah. Look, I think it's the latter for me. I think I'd rather just be like dominant. Like if you could ask me, like sports are different, because if you're asking me like, would you rather be like Crash Davis and the all-time home run hitter at AAA, or would you rather be like the 25th guy in a major league roster? Like obviously you choose a major league roster, but like entertainment, man, I'd like to just be like a legend at like the next tier down. Like, you know what? That guy, I got tickets. I got a Groupon for the Kyle Gass show. I got 2 tickets for $11, but damn if he didn't kill that show. That's what I'd prefer.
I like that thinking.
So to bring things back,
What were we talking about?
Kyle has a daughter on the way. Due date could be sometime
Any minute.
Any
minute.
And we expect her to be speaking in fully formed sentences at the age of 3 to 5 days. So
feasible.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned for that. We'll end things off with this mailbag question here. We also do want to acknowledge, before we answer this mailbag question, the passing of Skip Wilson, Temple's legendary baseball coach. He led Temple to 2 College World Series appearances, 1,034 wins. Again, passed away at the age of 92 on Tuesday. And we have a story up on the site about him, and we know a few of you chimed in on that and appreciate that. And although, Temple parted ways with its baseball program back in 2014, I believe, it's cool to see, how many people came out on social media and kind of just shared their thoughts there. So just wanted to acknowledge that and send our thoughts out to his family, his friends, and certainly the people who played for him and were affected by his life as well.
And Lynn Oliver passed today.
Yes.
2-time national champion on those 50s soccer teams for Temple.
Yes. Yeah. So a lot of loss for the Temple community. So again, we're thinking about those families as well. To close things out here with this football mailbag question, comes from the screen name TJ Clark. And this gets into a few things here. With the remaining scholarships, what positions do you think the football staff will target? And this is a recruiting question, of course. So as of now, they're at 13 verbals, right?
Correct.
And you've got, they've gone, talked about this before, fairly. You've got Eric King, Kevin Terry, Luke Watson, and Cole Skinner on the offensive line. You got 4 linemen there. You've got 3 wide receivers, Nathan Stewart, Richard Dandridge, Preston Everhart, Kyle Williams, considered an athlete, but more of a running back. I don't know. What are we thinking here? They've got their commitment from Tyler Douglas, a quarterback out of Ocean Township. Do you think he's the only quarterback in this class? Do you think they try to grab a second one?
I think he's the only quarterback as of right now. Who knows if like in February, if Mariano Valente or somebody transfers out, or Juwan Mathis transfers out, or Quincy Patterson transfers again, anything like that, then maybe you reevaluate that. But I think for the most part, like I think this class still needs corners. The only one they have right now is Caleb Burnett, he was originally from Dominican Republic, is that right?
The Caribbean, right? Yeah, somewhere in the Caribbean. Yeah, well, yeah, somewhere in the Caribbean.
Yeah, but we talked about like you're replacing like Keyshawn Paul and Cameron Ruiz are gone after this year. Iverson Clement moved to that position. Elijah Clark's still kind of there. Jalen McMurray's shown flashes, but I feel like they need to keep reloading at that position. And then I still think linebacker probably as well. They did bring out so many linebackers in on that last class that maybe you're like, okay, we're hanging out for a couple guys here, but I think linebacker and corners are where I'd focus.
Javon, any thoughts on that? Or
completely agree.
I think the only position group that's done other than quarterback, I guess, is like offensive line. Like offensive line feels like it's full.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Next question here, and this is some of the stat projection questions here, the projection questions in general. By the end of the season, who will lead the team in, first one is sacks, interceptions, and tackles. So who will lead the team in sacks?
Darian Varner.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think he'll play enough. Actually, no. Come back to me. I'm going to change that.
Who are you thinking? I could see Varner unless it's.
So here's what I'm pulling back. If you're saying who's going to lead the defensive line in sacks, I think it's Darian Varner. I think from everything you've seen, from everything Dante's broken down in the past, I think in reality it's a guy that's going to have linebacker next to his name.
Like an overhang type of, yeah.
Yeah. So like, I don't know if that ends up being a Leighton Jordan or somebody like that, but like, I think it's going to be who's like the primary guy from that pass rushing position at linebacker. I'll say Leighton Jordan.
I would think, I mean, this would be, well, obviously they need several people to step forward here, but this would be the right time and a great time for Leighton Jordan to step forward as that next, under recruited pass rusher that they develop. Now, the true Leighton Jordan played it, even though he wasn't at the level of like a Penn State recruit or an Ohio State or Notre Dame recruit, they got him out of McKeesport. It's a good program. He's got good size at 6'2", 220, but yeah, this would certainly be the right time for him to develop as that guy where you'd see him say, oh, wow, he looks different. He looks good coming off the edge. Maybe he's not a guy that you drop back in coverage, but he's a guy like Hassan Reddick. Not saying he's going to be Hassan Reddick who can just get to the quarterback. I will say, I feel like we're probably undervaluing how much he was solid last year. 5.5 tackles for a loss. Yep. He played last year. So it's not like he's a guy on nowhere. Sure.
But yeah, I'll say Leighton Jordan. Darian Varner, I think, is going to have a very good year at defensive line. I honestly, that's the same thing we talked about. Like, I feel like I look at the defensive line and go, there's so much smoke to the Zach Gill stuff that he has to at least be like a solid player. And then you have defensive linemen like Demaric Morris, Darian Varner, that I'm like, they showed flashes last year. Like, we're young. Like, am I crazy for thinking that line could be that much better this year?
Mm-hmm.
And then you start convincing yourself, like, screw it, 9 wins. Make it happen.
I mean, they could beat that Dolphins team that went undefeated. Why stop there?
Those guys are like 80 now. They destroy them.
Got them on a technicality. Javon, any other names you want to throw in the mix there, or did we cover?
I think Varner, Jordan, though those are the top 2 candidates. It depends on how much time the freshmen get. Like, Darian Lewis could possibly be the guy you say, not as a leader, but you see maybe next year has the chance to be that next premier edge rusher. I can't really think of too many after that, though. And I think everyone else I see at the outside linebacker spot are either guys who drop back or guys who are in there as run contained.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just to mention, I mean, Trey Thomas, JUCO guy, linebacker, and even Jacob Hollins. Jacob Hollins has played a lot of ball. He played at Fresno State before he went JUCO. So like they brought some experience in there that I'm just really excited to see what a DJ Elliott defense looks like, because it feels like it's going to be more aggressive and more dynamic and more where is it coming from. But until I actually see it, it's just X's and O's on a piece of paper.
I think the good thing is that we know it's not going to be staying in 3-3-5 nickel while you're getting 200 yards ran down your throat each game.
Yeah, I mean,
221 yards, excuse me.
That was fun football to cover.
In the end, though, like, I hate this because there's a lot of times when like I feel like, oh yeah, crap, I'm gonna end up defending Rod Carey. Like things like that happen. I go, like, they had so many safeties that could play last year. That's like, all right, you had to find a way to get these guys on the field, and the trade-off is, yeah, anybody can run the ball against you.
Yeah. Team leader in interceptions.
Somebody want to go first?
I don't know if I want to go corner or safety with it.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, is it?
Because I think Keyshawn Paul gets thrown at the most.
Yes.
All right.
The issue is, do I see anybody getting past him and Ruiz enough for the safeties to get the interceptions? So I think I'll go with Keyshawn Paul.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that. And my other concern is I think the safeties that return, except for maybe Deshaun Winston, I think the safeties that return are like less super athlete safeties. Like, I think Corey Palmer is like a really good athlete that like can play at that position, but I don't know how many snaps he's going to get this year. I don't know if I close my mind, if I see Alex Odom, who started a lot of games last year, has played a lot, if I see him bringing in 5 picks. So I'll say Keyshawn Paul as well.
Yeah, I would think. I mean, I know it's not exciting, but I think of Keyshawn Paul.
If it is safety, I would say. I mean, Deshaun Winston, like, we haven't seen you in 2.5 years because last year because of injury, the year before that because of COVID. The last staff was really high on him. I'll be curious to see if he is able to grab on something.
Be very cool.
Jalen Ware is eager to get to the ball.
Yeah.
The problem is, will it always be the right decision that he makes?
Yeah.
I think I said this a couple episodes ago, but like we're gonna close our eyes. It's gonna be November, and you're gonna be like Jalen Ware played 60% of the snaps. Like Jalen Ware, like just every year we're like, okay, this is the year they like somebody outpaces him, and then he's still there. It's gonna be a 3-year starter.
Yeah. Tackles.
See, this is curious to me because I bet you it's a safety because I think the linebackers people are going to rotate in so much. Like I'm going to say Alex Odom. I think he's a good tackling safety.
I can co-sign that.
Like last year, 3 of their top 4 tacklers were safeties.
Yeah, I put that in the story. I remember that very vividly.
If it were not a safety, who's at that middle level that you think would be their leading tackler? Is it a Jordan McGee? Is it somebody else?
Yeah, I would say I think Kobe Wilson gets a lot of the spotlight because of his recruitment, the fact they turned down Georgia, and that like honestly, and like Kobe Wilson's a good player. I think Jordan McGee is has maybe the higher ceiling at that position. Mm-hmm. So I'll say Jordan.
It's
McGee.
Clearly out of those two.
Yeah. I mean, it depends. Like because
unless you see a nose tackle.
It's Zach. Zach. Yeah, maybe we skipped over this. I mean, Zach Gill had said that he's playing the nose. He's coming off. He was a full participant in the spring. He's playing the nose, coming off that Achilles injury, and kind of shortchanged. Some of the things that Adam said about him. I asked him like, "Hey, your name keeps coming up. Why do you think that is? Can you kind of talk about yourself or brag about yourself?" And kind of just seems to be a guy that carved out a leadership role without being able to play last year. So that would obviously be a heck of a story if he makes that much of an impact at the nose. I think they'd be looking really good on defense if he's your leading tackler. But I would say
get on the field
finally.
Yeah. I mean, go back to the linebackers. I would say I'd be surprised if Jordan McGee and Kobe Wilson don't have 2 of those 4 starting spots. Yeah. And then other than that, I mean, the outside linebacker position is completely up in the air.
Mm-hmm. Will the defense be better or worse than last year against the run, pass, and scoring? My initial answer would be yes on all 3, but I don't know. I mean,
I bet you they're I bet you they're worse on passing just because people are going to actually throw the ball against them.
Yeah, they'll be a tad bit worse. And Amir Tyler's not back there anymore.
True.
And even MJ Griffin. I mean, MJ Griffin.
Yes.
Yeah, like there's a reason he's playing the ACC right now.
Louisville, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would say I think that just like people are going to – I don't think there will be such a glaring weakness like there was last year where everyone's like, well, okay, guess what? Running backs are getting the ball 30 times a piece each. Mm-hmm. Like I don't think that will be there. So I think they're going to throw the ball more. So I think statistically you'll see like – they give up more yards now.
Yeah, the stats were kind of skewed there. Be like, yeah, why wouldn't we run the ball?
Gun to my head, are they going to give up 38 points a game again like they did last year? No, like this is a little bit of like July 27th. Kyle is an optimist, but like I just feel like they have to be better at those positions.
Dark horse or under the radar guy on defense that could make the biggest impact?
I want to go last.
You want to go first, Javon, or you want to wait?
I guess I might as well stay on brand. For the 2 guys I've been talking about since the spring game, Satchel and Mathis, Jalen Satchel and Sylvester Mathis. I think those 2 have decent potential. One up the middle and one on the outside. Outside of that, I think everyone else we know about. So I can't really say under the radar. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying those guys are going to have any breakout seasons. I just think when they do steal some snaps here and there, you'll see some decent football out of them.
The only thing that gives me pause there is that there's always a guy that plays well in the spring game every year, and then it never sustains itself. I'm going to go with a guy, and again, this is just a gut feel and nothing more. And again, we'll probably change this answer halfway through August. The guy that Kyle brought up earlier that I'm interested to see if they can get more out of him, a guy that flashed a little bit last year is Corey Palmer out of Camden. If we've talked about that, you have Alex Odom there, you have Jalen Ware there. Of course, if Jalen Ware can just become steady and not get when he's steady, he's steady. When he gets beat, he really gets beat. But again, I kind of coaches say in some way, shape, or form, we want to give a lot of these guys a clean slate. Sometimes you think of that as a reporter too, and say, you could be in game 1, game 2, or game 3 and say, wow, that guy's better than I gave him credit for. And like, wow, the coaching really is that much better, or they just put him in the right spot, or so on and so forth. But I'm interested to see what the staff can get out of Corey Palmer. If he gives you more at safety, then they're obviously better on the back end there. That's my gut feel answer at this point. But, again, I still think that as we kind of transition out of this and bring this episode to a close, I still think that you'll see, and I could be wrong, I think that you'll still see a cautious Stan Drayton when it comes to talking to reporters. We are going to get players in preseason camp now. We weren't able to talk to players in the spring. And I think a lot of guys are fairly cautious in general. They don't want to paint themselves into a corner, but we've said this every year. If you talk to fans, you just say you try to listen. The parts of practice that we see are limited, basically drills, special teams, we'll see, but you kind of just keep your ears open, like who's coming up. And sometimes, if some player lets his guard down and says, hey, I'll tell you who looks really good, and it's this guy or that guy. I still think I don't expect that Stan Drayton is going to be ranting and raving and saying like, oh, this guy's going to be an all-conference player, or he's going to be that bold, but we'll just have to see which names are coming up. Again, remind people that we're not going to have access to all of practice, and we'll just do our best to kind of ask and find out what's going on here. So
Dominic Hill has a chance at corner.
Coming out of South Carolina as a corner?
Yes.
Well, that's my question. Is he playing corner? Is he playing corner, or is he more of a safety at this level? Like, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that kind of not steals my thunder at all, but kind of segues into my answer. Real quick, John, your point about giving a clean slate to players, I feel like if you look at our game threads on our message boards on any point, you see why people don't give clean slates, because a guy might get burnt game 1 and then play really well for 8 weeks straight. The second he gets burnt in game 9, our game threads are like, see, he's been awful since game 1. He's terrible. Like, oh, you're missing the 8 games in between that he was a pretty good player. Yeah. I will say this is going to sound ridiculous because saying he's under the radar, because he might be one of the more above the radar players that Temple's gotten in the last couple of years. I kind of see Iverson Clement having a role. I think he's just such a natural athlete that now that he's at corner, I could kind of see that, like, okay, not that I think he's going to be pushing Keyshawn Paul or Cameron Ruiz for a starting job, but we've seen it work in the past before, right? Like I saw Nate Hairston go from an afterthought at wide receiver to being an NFL draftee at corner. I've seen it work in the past. In the American at the Temple level, you can kind of get by with just athleticism sometimes. It's not all technique at this level in corner, and I think that he might just be a good enough athlete to carve out a role.
And that's a solid point. If you think about receivers in the conference right now, Tulane has maybe one. No one has more than
it's not 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I just assume that Memphis is going to flip a rock and find a 1,500 yard receiver because they do every year. But yeah, it's not a couple years ago where it was just like everybody could roll guys out against you. So,
and talk special teams. Mackenzie Morgan will be fun to watch.
I love Australian punters. Give me a 32-year-old eating Vegemite, older than me, saving towards his 401k. I love Australian punters. And the fact when they hired Adam Shire, I was like, this is it. They're finally going to have an Australian punter. And here we are. Well, granted, I think he's only like 28, but still.
Who else is on your long list of Australian punters?
Who was the guy the Eagles had for years? Not Sean Landeta, the guy after Sean Landeta. But pretty much everywhere Adam Shire has ever gone as Australian punter. I mean, you're seeing it up at Rutgers. Adam Corsack is still there. Like they get guys like that. And honestly, and like it works for him because let me rephrase it. It has to work for him because they essentially told the legacy punter, Adam Berry, like, you don't really fit the punting scheme anymore. And now he's at Oregon. He's at a Pac-12 school. Well, as of right now, they're a Pac-12 school.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm just curious about that.
Pac-12 anymore.
We've managed to go through a couple episodes talking about conference realignment.
Special teams in general, like another thing, like it just has to be better, right? Like the return game has to be better than it was the past couple of years.
Have a return game.
Yeah. Like I think we kind of washed over it a little bit in 2019 because they were winning, but like they took an all-American kick returner and punt returner and turned them into nothing. And I'd say it right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
Who's returning kicks?
It's a very
Ace Reigns.
question.
Obviously Clement. Like maybe you put
Maybe
a defensive guy back there.
Maybe
I think
a-
Clement is the answer. If he spent some time at running back and you're about to put him at corner,
you're just looking for a way
think
to-
he's the number one choice.
Yeah, if you're looking for a way to just get him on the field, then okay, here's 5 touches a day, 5 touches a game from that.
Yeah, maybe a Malik Cooper or someone like that. We'll see.
Yeah.
This is why camp's fun. You go in, it's kind of like a almost blank slate, and especially with a new staff, and you see who pops, and see which guys in talking about special teams as well. Like, is that where some of these mid-year guys, or they make their mark there? I mean, it sounds so trite to say, but maybe not with Temple, just because they had, the previous staff would say that they cared about special teams, but they had a funny way of showing it. It was more just like the Rod Carey era was like, special teams, don't F up. Just keep things steady. Don't block kicks. Don't give up long returns. And that never worked. So
Cam Johnston. That's what I was thinking of.
yes. Yeah.
Because Evans has a chance to make a name for himself on special teams.
Yeah. Yeah. Does like a guy like a Corey Yeoman come in, and if he doesn't necessarily break the rotation as a linebacker, is he a tackling machine on special teams as a guy with decent size at 6'3", 225? We'll see. Be very, very interesting. So thanks for sticking with us for this episode. We will be back with you next week. We'll have a lot to talk about, a lot of audio for you from Media Day and as the interviews kick up. And hope everyone's doing well, and we will talk to you soon.